Appearance on Dion's Daily Dose does not imply endorsement from or by any candidate or guest. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed by Dion Bergeron or Dion's Daily Dose are his own and do not represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of any guest. Material and information presented is for general information purposes only. The Dion's Daily Dose name in all forms and abbreviations are the property of its owners, and its use does not imply endorsement of or opposition to any specific organization, product, or service. If you'd like to support the show, please visit our Patreon at patreon.com/Dion's Daily Dose.
Hello, welcome everyone to Dion's Daily Dose. Today we have a very special guest, Commissioner Joe Haney. I know a lot of you guys may have been seeing what's going on with the local press and the stuff going back and forth. I've been watching the commissioner meetings personally on the edge of my seat, and it transcends just the commissioner meetings. It goes back and forth between the commissioner, the council, and what's going on here, what's going on there. And then, of course, you have the local for lack of a better term, journalists, although I use that term very, very loosely, talking about what's going on with this, right? This person said this person did that, rather than, and I've shared articles with you guys before, I've kind of broken them down, but rather than go through all that, we're going right to the source today. We're going to have Joe Haney on, and he's going to be given the opportunity to talk directly to you and let you know what you should know about this whole Michigan City bridge thing in a much easier to understand format. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on Joe Haney. There he is. Yay. Thanks for joining us, Joe. We appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it as well. I appreciate the opportunity.
So a lot of ado has been made about this Michigan City bridge thing. I want to give you kind of my perspective as just a regular member of the public and what I've heard and seen. And then I'd like to kind of give the floor over to you so you can explain the reality of the situation that maybe these publications aren't really understanding or seizing on. What we see when we watch these meetings is a group of commissioners that understand that the bridge needs to be fixed. And one of them, namely you, saying, okay, we have to make sure we go about doing this the right way. And two that say, it doesn't matter what the right way is, let's just get it done. Again, we have the commissioner's attorney, Shaw Friedman, saying, it's okay to do it this way because I say so. And then, of course, there's a whole lot of stuff that's going back and forth, him saying this and you saying that. But ultimately, I think everybody, especially that lives in Michigan City, but everybody in LaPorte County can kind of agree the bridge needs to be fixed. Absolutely. But what's the right way to do it? Are they right that this can just be pushed through? Or, I mean, I've seen some pretty compelling evidence, namely the State Board of Accounts has said, no, you can't just do it that way. Here you go.
Sure. So I mean, the issues with the Michigan City Bridge go back a long time, starting basically 1998, to be quite honest. But so the county is responsible for all the bridges in the county, period. So this is, it's been our responsibility now for about 20 years. Back in 2017, the commission at the time commissioned a study, and the Lochner Group cost the taxpayers close to $2 million for this study. It's a book about this thick, and I have a copy of it. It's a massive book about this thick that lays out about $26 million in repairs that need to be done. This is something that should not have. It's one of those things that's happened here in LaPorte County. There's a bunch of stuff where the can has been kicked down the road until it absolutely cannot be kicked any further.
Right.
So, we can go back and say after this study they got in 2018, they should have been making these decisions back in late 2018, early 2019, at the very latest. The idea that we're here now doing what we're doing is so bizarre. So I took office January 1st. In the beginning of January, we had a workshop specifically about the bridge. where we went over 3 different plans at the time. And this was in mid-January. January, actually, I believe it was January 13th, mid-January. We had a $25 million plan, a $26 million plan, and then a $5 million plan that was supposed to be done over 5 years. Now it's kind of morphed a little bit. Now it's like 5-ish million, 7 years. Either way, in February, I asked the commission president, we got to vote on this. No. March, April, May, June. Hey, we got to vote on this. You know what comes after November? December, winter. Literally, right. That's what I said. December's coming. No. So then in July, all of a sudden, there is a $1.5 million no bid contract that they want to vote on. And initially, so this is more than just one thing. So initially, this was presented to the council as an authorization to spend up to $1.5 million to repair the Franklin Street Bridge before the commission got it. So, which is a little odd that the council is voting on something before the commission approves it. So the council, in good faith, voted in favor of it, and I actually spoke in favor of spending money to fix the bridge. Now, at the time, not a peep was mentioned this was going to be a no-bid contract. Not a peep. The council voted on this with no inkling this was going to be a no-bid contract. Next commissioner meeting comes up, on goes the no-bid contract. One of the things I ran on was no more no-bid contracts. That's not the way things should be done. Now, theoretically, you can come up with some unique examples here or there that may fit outside of the mold, but in general, you just don't do that. Especially, first of all, they pulled the commission, 2-1 vote. I voted against it. Pulled a fast one on the council by doing a no-bid contract without giving them a heads up when they initially went for this. I didn't even know. The contract that we did wind up voting on, I voted against it. We didn't actually see that full contract until the 30th of July, and we voted on it in the middle of July. Again, this is, it's so curious. So I reached out, the Auditor Stabos reached out to the State Board of Accounts because he didn't feel it met special purchase statute. And the day we were voting on the this contract, this no bid contract, and we were going to use the special purpose statute, which is the first time we've actually used it in LaPorte County. And to my knowledge, it's the only time this will ever have been used on a bridge ever in the history of the state of Indiana as well. So I voiced several concerns. I stated several IC codes, and I'm like, I can't vote for this because we don't have the authority to do this, or it's not. What we're trying to do is we're not going about it the right way. I voted against it. They did their thing. After listening to some compelling arguments that the auditor made, I reached out to the State Board of Accounts, primarily to make sure that I was included on any correspondence that was sent back to the county from the State Board of Accounts. One of the reasons why is our county attorney likes to give summations of what he thinks things say, rather than give quotes of what things actually say. And that can leave the impression of something saying something that either isn't quite right or can be maybe it's technically accurate, but when you look at put it in context of everything else that's, for example, in an email,
right,
that's not really what is being said. So, and I say this on purpose because there's an incident earlier in the year, back in May, with the State Board of Accounts, where we had people who were unauthorized in the county who had full access to the entire county financial system, including edit access to departments that they were not in, that they had no business having edit access to.
That sounds very, very serious.
It's very serious. So I took steps when I found out about it on a Friday afternoon. And after about an hour of investigating back and forth, I was the only one in the office. We had, I think at this point, it had been about 2 months where Commission President Merzinski was in Florida. He'd been in Florida for about 2 months at that point. I was the only one in the office. And as vice president of the commission, I at that point I ordered our director of IT to remove access from these two unauthorized individuals to anything that was outside of their department that they shouldn't have access to edit access,
Right.
which is more than reasonable. Which is exactly the duty, duty obligated to protect our financial integrity.
Yeah.
So I got an email back almost immediately after that from the commission president, who overruled me, told our IT director not to do it, and I then back and forth with the county attorney. The county attorney said, I believe his exact words were, "Joe, just take a breath, relax. We'll get through this. I'll talk to the state board of accounts. I'll figure all this out." And I said, "There's nothing to talk about. I already spoke with the state board of accounts an hour ago. They told me no, you can't do that." They said there's a specific segregation of duties, is the exact verbiage they used, and they said they don't believe there's any way possible, even with safety precautions involved, they don't believe there's any way possible where that should ever be allowed. I mean, they're very specific. So he said he would talk to the State Board of Accounts. Knowing what I had just heard, I then contacted the State Board of Accounts. I sent them an email, the lady I spoke to, and I said, "Could you please summarize what we talked about earlier and put it in writing for me?" She said, "Sure." Now we're looking at, it's just after 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, 4 o'clock our time, so it's 5 o'clock Indianapolis time. It's over the weekend, so of course I didn't receive a full response on that till a couple days later. So I take the verbiage that's in there, I copy paste it out, I put it in there in an email to everybody. "Hey, we can't do this." And the county attorney's still saying, "Yeah, we can. It's fine." There's one county somewhere allows this to happen allegedly, and I was never able to verify that's the case. But in any event, the State Board of Accounts was very specific on that. So 3 weeks later, we're still arguing about this, and I resend out the email, which I guess the attorney Friedman had never gotten, that I forwarded. And he said, "Why didn't you send this to me 3 weeks ago?" Like, first of all, I'm pretty sure I did. And if I didn't, I sent you the direct quotes from SBOA that were copy pasted in like 3 or 4 emails now. So anyway, long story short, for 3 weeks, the county attorney never reached out to the SBOA and contacted them, and like he told me he would. 3 weeks. They're the ruling authority on this, right? 3 weeks he doesn't do his job. That's why I've moved for him to be removed as county attorney multiple times now. He does whatever he wants, quite honestly. It's horrible. He doesn't do his job. He doesn't do what he says, and from time to time he flat out lies. So, and of course, when I give him examples of this, he's you change the subject, whatever. And every time I go up there with a stack of documents, and I'm like, "Yeah, he does. Here it is. Let's read through them." They won't let me read them, but. So that's why I don't trust his judgment when it comes to the SBOA, because he was wrong there, blatantly wrong, and never took any and never followed up with the SBOA when he should have for 3 weeks. And there's no excuse for not doing your job for 3 weeks. That's incompetence, negligence at that point. So we fast forward to this. I didn't want another incident of this. So at this point, as of today, we have two different opinions from the State Board of Accounts. Okay. We have one from co-counsel, which says you can't do that. It's the special purchase statute does not allow for that.
Right. Which is what we've heard before the State Board of Accounts.
Right, which is what we heard.
Okay.
And then Attorney Friedman followed up with a long letter to the State Board of Accounts as to why the State Board of Accounts is wrong. And of course, then the State Board of Accounts co-counsel then escalated that up to General Counsel, which is the head legal for the entire State Board of Accounts in relation to this. And and the General Counsel actually wrote an even stricter, I would feel like even stricter letter back saying, "No, you can't do that. The special purchase statute does not apply." They even went so far. They even went so far as to then put a additional paragraph at the bottom saying, and just so you don't understand, or just so we are clear here, you can't just all of a sudden declare this an emergency if it's not an emergency, or if you had reasonable knowledge to anticipate this was going to happen in the first place. So it was an additional warning saying, "Hey, look, you not only can you not do this, but we see where this is going. Don't do this." You know, ahead of time saying, "Don't do that."
Right. Right.
So yeah, that's where we are now. So this is the third time this year that the State Board of Accounts has issued an opinion directly contrary to that of our county attorney. It's yet another state agency that says, no, your county attorney is wrong. You can't do that. Don't do that. Or in another instance, no, your county attorney is wrong. You did the right thing, being myself. I did the right thing. Don't let the county attorney tell you you did anything wrong. You didn't. You followed the law. You did exactly what you were supposed to do.
And I
So
think that's really important for our viewers to understand, because especially during the county council meeting and a little bit during the commissioners meeting, Mr. Friedman's remarks basically said, we were fine. We could have done all of this until someone went crying to the State Board of Accounts, which the language itself is ridiculous. But moving on from that, basically making it sound like everything was okay, but because someone went to the State Board of Accounts, all of a sudden it wasn't. But to clarify, the State Board of Accounts is not, it's not an ambiguous decision here. It's very clear cut. The State Board of Accounts said, not only did you do the right thing by sending this to us, we very much find that you were right to question it because it is incorrect. And the attorney, Mr. Friedman, responds to them and says, I think you're wrong. Here's why. And then they respond to him and say, not only are you still wrong, but we know what you're about to do, and we're telling you not to do that. Don't try to get around this by doing this. We know what's up, and you're blatantly incorrect. That's about it, right? I mean,
yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. So the argument has shifted now to, well, the State Board of Accounts is basically a paper tiger. Worst case scenario, they're going to write you a angry letter to put in your file and say, don't do that again. And the interesting part about this was during the last commissioner meeting, when this was going back and forth, Attorney Friedman said, well, we can't do it now because the cat's out of the bag. Literally, he said, the cat's out of the bag.
I remember that.
And I mean, by the end of that meeting, I am surprised he didn't say, and I would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for those damn meddling kids. I mean, it's honestly, it's darn kids. I hate to laugh about it because this is a serious. This is at some point going to become a serious situation because we know the bridge needs to be repaired. We've known since 2017 the bridge needed major repairs. We've been band-aiding it since then. Yeah, and now to pretend like all of a sudden we're down here, and in the ninth hour, the bottom of the hour, and all of a sudden, no, it's not all of a sudden. It's not any of that. We had a workshop on this in January. It's just preposterous to think that this sort of behavior can continue and can be allowed to continue, and it's not right. Now, theoretically, the argument now is, and what happened at the council is, all right, we know what happened. We don't ever want it to happen again, but we want to get the bridge fixed, and we want to prevent the bridge from being down for an extended period of time. Because keep in mind, right now, the bridge is operational. It's working. At some point in the future, it's going to break. Now, whether that's next year, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 years from now, at some point it's going to break. There's preventative maintenance that needs to be done, and that's something that I don't think, especially even at the government level, people understand the preventative maintenance side of things. Coming from the private sector, there was preventative maintenance we did all the time on our equipment. I worked in surgical suites for many years. Part of my duties as auto transfusion manager and then as operations manager was to make sure all of our equipment got preventative maintenance on a regular schedule and interval so they didn't break. Occasionally you have machines that break, things that go down, right? But we had preventative maintenance cycles and systems set up so that constantly, either ever so many hours of use, once a year at a minimum, either quarterly, and on top of that, these machines are tested, they're inspected, and made sure they're working properly. When it comes to the bridge, we just basically fix what's broken for a long time. Finally, now we're taking some proactive steps, which I'm glad about. But man, we knew about this in mid-January, what we were supposed to do, and The commission president didn't allow anything to go on the agenda for it and let it drag out until the middle of July, and that's why we're here now. And it shouldn't be. If we would have been, we could have. If they wanted to try and pull this, they could have done it back in February. If it worked, fine. If it didn't, fine. And the interesting part about how we got here is actually because of the county attorney says I accused him of acting unethically in regards to this, and when I specifically said his actions were unethical were directly in relation to him ghostwriting an email for a council person. Now he wrote, and we know this because the council person hit reply all instead of just reply. So he hit reply all, and boom, there we go. We see the proof is in the pudding, so to speak. So in the email, it says it's 4 detailed, lengthy paragraphs talking about this person in first person, saying, "I have 17 years experience, with this bridge and on the council and blah 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 blah, and all this stuff." Well, as it turns out, that all of it, 82% of that email was written word for word, copy paste verbatim by Shaw Friedman. And then, the last 2 sentences of that email were written by the person who actually sent it out, but the rest of it's verbatim copy pasted. And it's justifying the $1.5 million no bid contract because, they won't take exception to this or that. It's had this person actually wrote it. I put, until I realized what had happened, I put some stock into that, and it was shifting my opinion on it. 'Cause like, I'm the relative newcomer, right? I've only been on the job for 8.5 months now.
Which let me interrupt you just really quickly. The commissioner and the attorney both like to bring up how long you and the auditor have been in the position. Well, you've just done this for 8 months. You've just done this for 8 months. Whether or not they were reelected, technically they've only done this for 8 months as well.
Yeah.
Every election, or wherever their election was. I mean, ultimately, that's the entire purpose, is so that we can get people into office. It doesn't matter if you've been there a day, a month, or multiple years. You have the same job they do, the same qualifications they do, and represent the same constituents that they do.
Yeah.
It's a way to, in my opinion, lessen the impact of the things that you have to say because you've only been doing this for X amount of months. Whatever, it doesn't matter.
And I would actually put forward on that. I've only been doing this for 8 months, but I've had the county attorney slapped down by a state agency 4 times already this year, at least 4 times that I know of this year, in my lowly 8 months of experience now. And he's allegedly been working in government in one facet or another as an attorney for one government body or another for like 30 years. So maybe it's a good thing somebody's in here who's new and who is questioning this, because, come on, you've been slapped down by a government agency now 4 times in 8 months. Really? You're going to talk about my level of experience?
Right, exactly. So we've seen kind of the at least I've seen these meetings, and everyone's like, well, let's focus on the task at hand. Let's focus on specifically the bridge. As a regular taxpayer who's generally not super involved in watching all the meetings and reading the minutes and knowing about everything, why did this bridge, first of all, we know that this bridge is historic, right? It's a unique bridge. It's important to the people of Michigan City because it's very noticeable. It's part of Michigan City. Personally, I'd replace it with something cheaper, but that's me. I don't represent the will of the taxpayers. But we know that there are ongoing expenses to a project like this, to a bridge. Like you said, why haven't we focused on these preventative maintenance issues? Why haven't we focused on these ongoing expenses, especially of something that is so important to the major metropolitan area in LaPorte County, which is Michigan City? Mm-hmm. It's been left to the last minute again.
Yeah, it's So this is part of, like, the Michigan City Bridge wasn't really even truly on my radar until last November or December, when I started getting more into this, a couple months before I took office. Up until then, even as somebody who, generally speaking, follows the news pretty closely and kind of was keeping up, for the past several years on what was happening with the commission. The Michigan City Bridge wasn't something that was really at the top of my radar. It's probably not for most people. The Michigan City Bridge is a historical bridge, and it's on the historical list of bridges, which means that if it was up to me, honestly, I think we'd either contract some kind of historical society and be like, hey, you guys want this thing, take it, cart it out of here, do, whatever. But it is a historical bridge that we have two options with it: either repair it and keep it going, or if we want to replace it, we have to literally take the entire bridge, lift it up and move it somewhere and set it somewhere else.
Yeah.
So
that's because it's registered
$1 million. Yeah. We can't just destroy it. We would have to pick it up, move it, and put it somewhere else. In that regard. So basically we're stuck with it, for lack of a better term. And there is some cool historical status to it, and it's neat. At the same time, it is a massive money pit that from a financial standpoint, if we didn't have to have it, I would say it would be time to let it go, but we have to. So I'm really trying to find a path forward here so that we can move forward with this. What the council did at their last meeting was they voted unanimously to, the word isn't that, to direct the auditor to pay the bills in relation to this, and that they would take any heat that came down from the auditor's office if the State Board of Accounts takes audit exception to this. So
I watched that part, and I'll be honest, as a layperson, I'm going, is that even something that they can do?
It.
I mean, not.
I don't think so.
I don't want to put you in a precarious position, but
right. So yes. So it's a 50-50 split. So on the one hand, the council can direct the auditor to pay those bills.
Right.
And the auditor could theoretically claim that, well, the council told me to do it. I expressed my concerns. The council unanimously voted that I pay him anyway, so I just went ahead and paid it. Mm-hmm. So he does have an affirmative defense there, theoretically, moving forward. Okay. Now, can the council actually, if the State Board of Accounts gives an audit exception to the auditor, can council just say, oh no, we'll take that? I don't know if they can. I don't know. So what we have here is a very interesting position for the auditor to be in, because he knows what the State Board of Accounts has said. The council, it's different for either council folks or the commissioners, because it's not like really, even if the State Board of Accounts does come against the council or commission, they're coming more against a body than an individual. So it's a different function. It's a different statutory function that the council performs, the commission performs, than the auditor. So the auditor's in a different position than any of the rest of us are. It's one of those things. At this point, we want the parts to be ordered. We want preventative maintenance to be done, and we don't want to cost the taxpayers any more money. At the same time, though, is it okay to break state statute because our intentions, at least at this point, generally speaking, are good? I mean, so from the commission level, we pass ordinances that people who live in unincorporated areas of the county have to follow. So, how can I look out at the rest of the folks in LaPorte County and say, oh, you guys got to follow these rules that we passed, but yeah, I know we didn't follow the law over, the rules and laws over here, but we had good intentions. What happens if a citizen comes up to me and says, oh, well, I didn't follow this because I had good intentions.
Right.
Well, it's a horrible example to set, and we're right here, right now, at this moment, because the previous commission didn't do their job. And so that would have been Merzinski, Cora, and Mateus. They didn't do their job. That's why we're here now.
Yeah, 2 out of 3 are still there.
2 out of 3 of which are still here.
Right.
So the commission as a whole myself included, because I wasn't able to get them to actually do the right thing back in January, February, March, April, May, June. We're here now because we didn't take action on this when we should have back in late January, early February. That compounds the issue. So the idea that this is somehow now on Tim and I because they've kicked the can down the road for years and we're here now, I mean, it's preposterous. I think the majority of the public does get that. When Shaw Friedman's up there slamming his hand down on that, several inch thick book saying this is, the 2018 that, study that we came up with, I think the general public looks at it and be like, well, why the hell are we still talking about that in coming into third quarter of 2021?
Right.
That was 3 years ago. You've been sitting on this for 3 years and you're just now trying to do something through a no bid contract, through a statute that's never been used before in LaPorte County, through a statute that, to the best of my knowledge, has never been used in the entire history of the state of Indiana for a bridge.
Right.
It's just.
Right. You're absolutely right. I mean, I think the majority of people that see this and see him referencing this study that was commissioned, in 2017, it's now 2018
$2 million.
Right. Why did we not use that study to get this done then? We're 3 years down the road from that study, and I think that's one of the most important takeaways here is, okay, this study that he keeps referencing that costs so much money, why did we not utilize that study to do the bid that was necessary at the time to procure the long-term maintenance of this bridge that we're talking about 3 years later still isn't done? And now they want to wrap it up and, well, we got to do it this way and we have to get it done and this and that and the other. You don't have to remark on this, but I do want to say, myself, I wonder why. I heard you ask the question to Marquise, however you pronounce the name, to them, why we've heard the attorney reference several times that the costs are going to be significantly higher if we do the bid process versus the no bid process. And you asked them directly, why would it be different? And I listened to the answer that was kind of long, and it turned into, everybody patting them on the back for doing their job that they were paid to do with the bridge, whatever. Again, I want to make sure I'm very clear. I don't know anything about the company that does the bridge, Marquise Electric. I don't know anything. This is not a reference on them. But when you tell someone, if we give it to them, it'll be much cheaper than if we go through the legal process to do it, in which case it'll be much more expensive. And when they were asked directly, well, is there a reason it'll be more expensive? And they're like, yeah, we don't even know if we're going to do it. Okay, so you can guarantee it for this right now going the sideways route, but you can't give the same bid later. Me as a taxpayer, I was very confused about that. And I was like, see, this big long drawn out explanation that they gave didn't answer the crux of the question, which was asked, in my opinion. But I'm not. You said everything you needed to at the county commissioners meeting, so I'm not going to reflect on that. I just want the listeners to understand. I watched the whole meeting. I understood exactly what happened, and again, at the end, what I saw was them being patted on the back for doing the money they were paid to by your tax dollars. I don't know. I'm not even gonna get into that. But I think most people are smart enough to see what's going on here and smart enough to understand. The other point that I want to mention, going back to something you said earlier, that I think is very concerning, and I think more people should be a lot more concerned about, is an attorney that is I want to ask a question while I'm on this subject, because I want to find out. There seems to be a little bit of misunderstanding as to Shaw Friedman's job. I've looked at some stuff that he is the attorney for the commission, but I keep hearing him referenced as the county attorney. Is he more than an attorney for the commissioners, or is he generally the attorney for the county?
That's actually an excellent question. It's one that we're grappling with right now. So he is the commission attorney. Now, according to him, that's been standard in practice for 70 years or however many years he says, that the county attorney, that the commission attorney is also a county attorney. So he and there's no contract. So here's something else that's insane.
Okay. I know this is kind of a convoluted thing. So
no, it is. It
Yeah.
is. And there's so much to kind of wrap your mind around with this. So have you ever known an attorney to tell their client they don't need a contract with someone they're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars?
Never.
Okay.
Never.
So Shaw Friedman acts as the commission attorney. There's no contract. Okay,
so there is no, just so everybody understands, there is no contract, and we're talking about an attorney here, a bar attorney. There is no legal contract for him to provide services that hires him and outlines his duties or anything like that. No signatures. There's no contract.
Correct.
That's insane.
It is insane.
Because if I went
is.
to an attorney to have him represent me for any kind of matter, everything from, filing my divorce papers to defending me in a potential criminal proceeding, they give you a stack of papers for you to sign that outlines their duties, how much they charge for those duties, retainer fees, things like that. I mean, it's pretty standard practice for lawyers.
Yeah.
But there's no such document with the county or the commissioners.
Nope. So he believes that he is the county attorney, as he calls himself, because of what he refers to as standards and practices over the last, I think, 70 to 80 years, however long the term is, a while.
Okay.
That the commission attorney acts as attorney for, and he's put this in writing, that he represents every department and elected official in the county that doesn't have its own appointed attorney. So basically the sheriff's department, the clerk of the court, auditor, which is weird, right? So Shaw Friedman is suing the auditor right now, but he's also representing him in a legal capacity for the county. How can you sue someone and represent them as, right? It's just, that's how bizarre this whole thing is. So that's why he continues to reference himself as the county attorney when he's really just the commission attorney. But he acts as he chooses because the other two commissioners let him do pretty much whatever he wants. I haven't seen I'm trying to recall how many times, if ever, either Commissioner Merzinski or Mateus has said no to Shaw Friedman this year for anything. I can't recall off the top of my head. I can't recall off the top of my head a single instance this year.
And I'm not going to ask you to comment on this, but I do want my viewers right now to understand that Rich Merzinski campaigned on getting rid of Shaw Friedman. That was one of his campaign promises. I just want to state that for the record. I followed his campaign closely. And one of the things that he professed on more than one occasion was, once reelected, that he would ensure that he voted to dismiss Shaw Friedman as the attorney for the commissioners. When the time came to vote, not only did he vote to retain him, but he made a glowing speech. Why the change? Hey, that's up to you as the viewer to decide. But I'm going to tell you, I was shocked. There are some other things that I've mentioned before, and I'm not going to get into now, but it's suspicious to say the least, especially given that his previous letters and statements were contrary to the now glowing reviews he was giving of Shaw. But anyway, it's a concerning thing for me as a taxpayer to see these duties suddenly taken on, or maybe not suddenly, maybe it's been this way for quite a while, but without some sort of legal parameters. What can he do? What can he not do? There doesn't seem to be a particular document that we can point to, other than Indiana Code, which references that he represents the executive branch. Doesn't even say the commissioners. That he represents. Oh, kitty! That he represents the executive branch, which are the commissioners. The LaPorte County Commissioners are the executive branch of our county government. So he does represent them as far as I can tell. But as for all the other officers, like you said, the auditor, the sheriff's department, all these other places, I don't see any indication other than these, like you said, going back many, many decades to the customs and practices. No legal foundation for this other than that. So, and of course, your other two commissioners aren't going to get together and join you in outlining particular duties, and we know why. We can't say why, but we know why. At least I know why. I'll say it. I don't care. You have to be a lot more careful than I do. They owe him something. What that is, I don't know. They're best friends with him. Whatever. I can't particularly say exactly it's this, but I will say it's awfully darn suspicious how someone goes from saying, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, to suddenly being someone's biggest cheerleader. Now, if we can get someone onto the commissioners that is willing to kind of pick up the mantle and outline what this person's job is, regardless of how you feel about this person or that person, I think that would do the county a lot of good to have a basic understanding of what a particular county's employee's job is. Can we agree on that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the other thing that I wanted to say, because I kind of got sidetracked trying to understand county commissioner, attorney, county attorney, where does this come from, which I think you explained very well. Thank you. Anytime you have an attorney writing emails for people, especially in the first person, I don't necessarily see a problem to give a hypothetical. Hey, I don't know how to feel about the hypothetical situation. Person A writing to the commissioner's attorney and saying, hey, I don't know how to feel about this whole bridge thing. Can you maybe give me some guidance there? I don't have a problem with that. But for them to outline an email from first person as this person to argue for their position, I mean, that's some murky waters. I mean, not even murky. I'd say that's slimy.
That's why I called it unethical.
Yeah,
and
I would definitely agree that
and it's not just completely written in first person. Shaw also signed it with the council person's name.
Is that
typed the council person's name as ending it, not actual physical signature, but put the council person's name in there, maybe because he thought the council person wasn't capable of putting their own name at the bottom of it. I don't know. Right. I don't know. Yeah. But it's just, I'm telling half this stuff. If I was writing a book and put it in a book, people would be like, no, that couldn't happen. That's too preposterous. That would never happen.
Right. And they say truth is stranger than fiction, and we've seen it time and time again. It blows my mind. I'll tell you, and this is just a personal thing. Before I got into politics at the beginning of my run, I knew that there was some crazy stuff going on. I knew that there were various clubs, but one thing that really, really kind of opened my eyes was it's not like they show it in the movies. It isn't a group of people that get together in a back room and smoke some cigars and agree to this stuff. It's things like you said. It's attorneys that do more than they're supposed to do, that literally guide elected officials doing what they're supposed to be doing. This is the real corruption. And you can come after me if you want, Mr. Friedman. I'm sure you'll eventually see this video. In my opinion, you want to sue me, go for it. If this is what's happening, that is corruption. That is unethical, and that is, in my opinion, it should be. If it's not against the law, it should be. But when you have this type of thing happening, that's the real underbelly. That's the real backroom politics of LaPorte County. You have one person that makes decisions for the majority of the tax-paying voters, and this person was never elected. This is not an elected official we're talking about. This is someone that was hired, and we've seen this before in other areas. We've seen, matter of fact, last year we had health departments issuing mask mandates and determining what people can and can't do, where you can go, what's open, what's not. Now, luckily, our downstate brethren made it to where the county commissioners or various councils were in charge of that rather than the health departments. The health department would have to go to the elected officials and say, hey, we want to do this. And the actual elected officials would have to make it happen. I think that's the way it should be, not because I'm necessarily against mass mandates, even though I am, but that's not the point. The point is these people shouldn't be giving policies that affect a large number of people when they were never voted in. There's no accountability there. I think that's really, really the crux of the matter is, in order to have accountability, we have to know who's making the decisions. And the people making the decisions have to be elected so that there should be a process to get rid of them. But Dave wants to say that the city he lives in needs politicians like you. Hats off for integrity. Thank
you.
Jack says when you really dig into things, what you really find out is not the elected officials that have the highest ability to harm your lifestyle. And that's really important, because I think that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about people that kind of behind the scenes are making decisions, or at very least influencing those decisions for good or ill. I mean, like you said, maybe it is good that the Michigan City Bridge gets this no bid contract. Maybe it is the cheapest option for the taxpayers. But just because something may be the cheapest and it may be the fastest doesn't mean it's right. Doesn't mean it doesn't violate code. Doesn't mean that it's, and I don't know that it's illegal per se, because that argument was made. I can't speak to that, but I mean, it's a slippery slope.
It's definitely contrary to the code. It's definitely contrary to state statute.
Right.
So when you start digging down and looking, what are the penalties for violating this? It's written by politicians who may be subject to that, and politicians who are subject to things don't necessarily write in, you look across the border in Illinois, all the Chicago aldermen, for example, are considered deputized officers or something, so they can all carry guns, even though it's illegal for everybody else to carry guns, but an alderman can carry a gun.
Right.
So they write all these exceptions and carve outs and things. I'm not necessarily saying there's anything that, when the special purchase statute was devised and written, that they were looking to carve it out per se. But when you start trying to find penalties for a lot of these things, when it comes down to penalties toward the elected officials, they're just non-existent. And I get it, right? Why would you want to make a law that you could get in trouble for later on if you screwed up on? Not saying it's right, but I get why, you don't want to write a law against yourself. I get it. And that's how we get here to this point, because people look at it and they think, oh, well, there's no teeth here, so who cares if I violate it, if the worst that's going to happen is I get a nasty letter. And that's why we're here now, because they're like, well, if we get caught, who cares? Well, I don't know. As elected officials,
even
if
there's no penalty,
shouldn't we be expected to follow the rules? And
that's exactly right. It's like the example you gave earlier, where if you're not willing to follow, and I'd just like to point out that that's exactly what's wrong with this country, is politicians believing that the laws don't apply to them. That, I can do this, that's fine. And we've seen it over and over with people saying, no, you can't go outside, but I can. You can't leave the state, but I can. You can't have a party without masks, but I can. This is a prime example, and maybe it is for the best, but ultimately it doesn't matter whether it's good, whether it's bad. If these people are not willing to follow policies and procedures, then why are they creating them for us?
Yeah.
And that really is, and that's why I applaud what you do. Even if it slows down the bridge, even if it slows down this process, if it makes it go the way it should go, then I'm all for it. Because otherwise, why have these procedures? Why have these laws? Why have any laws? Because if, I was speeding because I had to, to get here quickly, I was doing it for a good reason, officer. That's not going to fly. So like you said, and especially when you create policy yourself, and these people come to you and they go, well, I didn't do it because I had a good reason. It was for, I had, it doesn't hold up to scrutiny. Right.
Yeah. And especially not when it's not like we didn't see this on the horizon. It's not like we didn't know. You can't purposefully, I take strong exception to the fact that you purposefully willfully put yourself behind the 8 ball and then scream, oh, we have to get this done because it's almost winter and it won't be here in time. Okay, you did this yourself to yourself. You did this to us. It's your fault we're here right now. And now you're pissed because you have to follow the law, because that's basically what happened at that last commissioner meeting. When the county attorney says, I'm throwing up my hands, I'm done with this, and Merzinski tried to appoint this, this new bridge committee now because he's done with it. And it's like, okay, you were all about the bridge and all about how you had to be on this committee.
Yeah.
Because you and Yagelski and I forget who the third one was, know all about this bridge, and you're the experts, and that's why I deferred to them, and I didn't, ask to be on the bridge thing because, in addition to only being on the job for 15, ish days when that happened,
right.
I don't have any background in, bridge building, right?
Maintenance or any of that,
right? Engineering or whatever the term is, that's bridge expert, whatever it is. It's not me, right? So I don't even know what the proper term is for it.
Yeah.
So
engineering, maybe?
So now, as soon as you're told that you have to follow the law, you don't want anything else to do with this. Your first instinct is to throw up your hands and say, I don't want anything else to do with this.
Yeah.
That should shoot up huge red flags for everybody and just be like, look, this is not the way government should operate. This is not the way civilized people should behave. This is just no.
Yeah. Right.
Just no.
Right. And aside from everything else, it's frustrating too, because instead of focusing on the importance of this and how to make it a reality, we're seeing attacks from Mr. Friedman about decades-old websites and ridiculous notions and where you lived when he was X years old. Like, I don't know if I'm seeing a mind unraveling or if someone is just that angry that they can't be coherent, because I've lost track of how silly this has become.
It's their attack and response about, for whatever reason they hate me because I guess I'm a kid. I'm 43. I don't think I'm a kid anymore, but one of the big things he attacked me on was attending kindergarten in 1982 when I was 5 years old. I don't see how being in kindergarten at 5 years of age is bad. I don't see how attending kindergarten in Florida is bad.
Yeah.
But apparently that was a horrible thing that I did, was being 5 years old in 1982 and
how dare you?
Kindergarten. How dare I attend kindergarten, right? That's how disconnected and just off the wall they have to get to try and combat my logical, well thought out position. And one of the if that second commission meeting of the year, and I think people should go back and I think watching these commission meetings would really shed. There's a lot of boring stuff that happens for the majority of these meetings, but keeping up and watching these meetings, seeing what happens for yourself, especially if you can go in person a couple of times to see the dynamics of how the interactions between us are in person, that just can't translate well over a broadcast.
I agree with
that would be great, but if you can't make it in person, go to one of them at least. Find a way to get to one of them, but watch these meetings, see what actually happens, and then determine for yourself what's going on. Because it's one thing to read a news story or hear a couple of sound bites that are played on the radio, but to actually watch the meetings, watch how they unfold, watch how they react. When I point out certain facts, certain fact statements, things that they've done, you can watch their body language. Immediately that they right? I mean, you see it on their faces, you see how they react,
And I
and
think that's important too, because
yeah,
there's a lot of times that just doesn't translate. The camera, when you're watching the Zoom or whatever, the camera might be focused on the person that's speaking, and you can't see the various commissioners
mhm,
or these other people. When you're there in person, which I need to go to more, but when you're there in person, you can actually see the body language. You can see the eye rolls. You can see the sighs and the grunts and the disregard in many cases for the will of the people. And I think that that's really important. It's disgusting, but it's also absolutely critical that you see it with your own eyes. We can sit up here all day and tell you this happened and this happened. Go look. At minimum, review some of these commissioner meetings, these council meetings, look at the video. But if you can attend, at least go to one. Look at how these people react. I'm going to give an example. When you pointed out that this email was reply all, that it had already been filled out, which is ghostwriting. This was filled out. This was done. One was too busy on their phone. The other looked like they were napping. Your other two commissioners. So that says it all. That, like you said, I got the picture on your page, and it said a picture's worth 1,000 words, and it is. Look at the absolute disregard for your rights these people have. The absolute disregard, because that's how you rank. Their boss is up here now. Normally, their boss is supposed to be you. So where are you on that hierarchy?
yeah. You know, there's a comedian who's no longer with us that while he was a little raunchy, and I didn't agree with him on everything, he had some amazing takes when it came to the government. And of course, I'm talking about George Carlin. And Carlin, in one of his skits, he said, I forget exactly what he was referencing, but he said, and he made the point several times, they don't care about you.
Mm-hmm.
They
It's a big
don't
club, and you
care
ain't in it.
about you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It may have been from that one because he had several of these, but that resonated with me a lot. And when I ran, and I've told this story a couple of times. When I ran for office, I filed. I want to say it was like 18 hours before the deadline to file was done. I really didn't want to run because I knew the time, effort, and commitment I would have to make. I thought I knew, and it is significantly more than it turned out to be. I thought I knew, but it's way more. And I knew it was going to take a lot of work and a lot of effort. So I was hoping somebody else was going to throw their hat in the ring on the Republican side. I was hoping somebody would. And with 18 hours left to go to filing, I was like, well, somebody's got to do it. So I went down and I filed. And if nothing else in my mind when I initially filed was, you know what, it'll be another name. I can make some good points and hopefully at least shift the dynamic a little bit. I didn't think I had a chance of winning initially. I really didn't. I mean, it was possible, but it was what it was. I was realistic. I just didn't want him to go unchallenged. I figured everybody needs an opponent, regardless of whatever. You need an opponent, and that's why I ran. So after the primary was over, no, before the primary was over, once it was official and my thing was accepted, and it wasn't challenged, I started attending every commissioner meeting, and from I guess it was February through to the end of the year, I missed 2 commissioner meetings, and those were 2 daytime commissioner meetings at 10 a.m. I made every evening commissioner meeting for the entire year and almost every daytime one, which was better attendance than any of the other 3 commissioners. And I wasn't even a commissioner; I was just running,
which is kind of sad. Not kind of; it's definitely sad.
Yeah. So anyway, as I sat there and I watched these meetings, I knew there were things wrong. That's why I wanted to put my hat in the ring originally. I really started just seeing how wrong things were, how off things were, watching the interplay between basically any time there was any question about anything, the commissioners would look over at the attorney and he would tell them what to do. And I thought that was weird because I didn't know Shaw Friedman from anybody else at that time, right? I never had any interactions with him really. I had one brief interaction with him a couple years earlier about a petition I presented to them, and we had a little conversation back and forth. It was friendly. It was not adversarial or anything. So, I didn't, like I said, I really didn't know Shaw Friedman from anybody else. Sitting there watching and looking and listening and seeing how things played out, it just felt more and more wrong. And by the time the primaries were over, I realized I have to win. This isn't just about putting an opponent up to hopefully keep them on the right track and hopefully hold them accountable. This is, I have to win. Something has to be done. This has to be stopped. We can't allow this to continue. And I really started putting in work to make sure that I stood a chance at winning. And the groundwork that I put in, the people noticed, and that's why I won with such a large margin. People saw what was going on. They saw through the money that was being spent. I was outspent 12-1 in the campaign.
Oh yeah, it was insane how many signs and everything else were around for your opponent.
They ran television ads during Monday Night Football against me to try and get me. A Monday Night Football for a county commissioner race, right? Yeah. Tens and tens of thousands of dollars spent on that race. So I take being here very seriously. Without the support, without the true support of all the people in LaPorte County turning out, voting, and trusting me, I don't want to betray that trust, and I want to do what I was put here for. The people wanted something different. They wanted what I ran on: truth, transparency, and integrity. And that's why I'm here, and that's what I'm going to keep doing. And I don't care how much they attack me, threaten me, or do anything else. I'm going to keep doing it. And I'm here. I've got just shy of 3.5 more years of this, and depending on what happens at the end of it, if they decide to retain me, or even if I decide to run again, I don't even know. I love the work of being a county commissioner. I love the day-to-day work and actually accomplishing things. I think I've gotten more done in half a year than the other commissioners have gotten done in this county throughout their entire terms, as far as just simple stuff like getting sirens fixed, right? I mean, we have emergency sirens in this county. How do you just let these things go for that long? And it's just as simple as turning your department loose, saying, hey, it's okay. Shut down your office for the day. Put everybody in the field. Right. We just had massive storms come through. We got another one coming next weekend. You got phones. You got you got cell phones. You got tablets. You got laptops. Get out there in the field. Test every single one of these things on site. Find out which ones do and don't work. Let's get them fixed. Right. And you know what? I told them it was okay to do their job. They went out and did their job. Yeah. I mean, wow.
Amazing how that works.
It's that simple, right? And I know I've gotten a lot of praise and a lot of credit for that. All I really did was just tell them it was okay to do their job. They're the ones who went out and did all the work. They did it all. And why people just can't, or why, my fellow elected officials just can't let the employees do their jobs. Let them know it's okay to do your job. Mm-hmm. I don't get it.
Well, there's a great degree of micromanagement as well, where people want to feel like they're in charge and they want to feel like they're doing the right thing. And that breeds under them people that are afraid to do what they need to do because they might get yelled at or this or that, which I think is really important as well. Something you've stood up for since the beginning is a whistleblower protection of some sort. And I find it very, very telling. And you should as well out there, watcher, voter, viewer, you should find it very telling, the people that are for whistleblower protection and the people that claim it's already there or claim it's not needed. Anytime you have someone claim that whistleblower protection is not needed, you really need to roll your eyes, because it doesn't matter how great a system is. There are always improvements that can be made, and there are always people who may not feel like they can go to their supervisor. What if it's their supervisor that's creating the hostile work environment? Yeah. And in many cases, this happens.
Yeah. And the important part to touch on there is, even if everything is absolutely perfectly fine, couldn't be better, we're all elected for a maximum of 4 years. In 4 years, every single one of us could be voted out. There could be a whole new crop in here that are just that are horrible, sleazy people, right? Because we know it's happened because we
Oh
look at
yeah,
what's been elected before in this county, right?
yeah, absolutely.
Or not just in this county, but in the state, in the nation, right? So what you want to do, regardless of how good or bad things are going, you want to put in place policies and procedures that will not just protect people now, but will protect people if things get bad. So why you would be against that, I don't know. It's the same way, for years I talked to folks on whatever side of the aisle it was when we went from Bush to to Obama, and then into Trump, and now into Biden. Same thing. It's like, look, you don't want to give someone any power or anything that you wouldn't want your worst enemy to have.
Let me see your cat.
Sure. He's actually just got up here to turn around and lay down, but this is Yoda.
Awesome.
He loves to lay in the lap, but he does not like to be held. So.
Oh yeah. Okay. I'll let him go before he claws you.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a good cat. He's really good, but he likes to be petted, but he hates to be held. He hates to be held. He'll sit in my lap all day. He's still like right here.
Aw.
But yeah,
I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to. Man, I'm a cat.
No, I don't blame you.
I like cats and dogs, but
I like cats and dogs too. We have one dog and a few cats, but so anyway, no, I think it's important to understand that just because someone good is in office now doesn't mean that they will be in the future. Just because you have a good department head or all good department heads doesn't mean you're not going to wind up with a bad one. 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. We don't, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what's going to happen. So if you put those protections in place now, if they're not needed, well, that's great. You don't need them. Then they're there in case you do.
Even better.
And,
it's better than
even better. Yeah, even better. We don't need them. They're there in case we do. Mm-hmm. But when Commissioner Merzinski and Mateus fought me tooth and nail, they didn't even. And they hate social media. So if you're not following my Facebook page, feel free. Joe Haney Official, just facebook.com/Joe Haney Official.
Joe Haney Official. Guys, go check it out.
Official. And because I had to take social media to let the public know my fellow commissioners don't want whistleblower protection. Why don't you let them know how you feel? If you feel so inclined. If you feel strongly about it, either direction, let them know. Should we have it? Should we not? And then, of course, after public pressure was applied, then they finally acquiesced to part of it. And we got at least something good, but now we're still stuck in the fact that we're looking at they still wanted to put it under HR, which is just not right, especially not for some of the things that we're hearing. And then moving forward, now they're still trying to have the commission select when I think it should be an independent and impartial process, but we're still working through that. I think they're just trying to drag it out till it dies out, till either everybody forgets about it and it's not an issue again, and it's still an issue, and I'm not going to let it die. But now with this bridge thing, we've got to figure out a way forward on this. I want the bridge to stay functional. I want it to work. And is it too much to ask that we follow the rules?
Right. I don't think so.
I don't think so. I mean, if the council wants to go off on their own and do it, and then however the auditor comes down on it, however he feels comfortable with, because at the end of the day, it's the auditor who's on the line. So
yeah. So I'm gonna we'll kind of wrap it up, but I do want to say for everybody out there, Christopher Throgmorton is. I'm going to bring him on. I've offered to bring him on so that he can say his piece. He has just so everybody's aware, it's not that I'm ignoring him or anything. He has active lawsuits against the county. So Joe is very limited as to how he can interact and what he can say, not because he likes it, but because that's just the way it is. But I'm going to he's very, he's very comment, and that's fine. That's his absolute right. So he can say whatever he wants. I fully support his right to say whatever he wants, but he said he's declining right now to come on, which is fine. But if you change your mind, Chris, I'd love to have you on. We'll have a discussion. But just so everybody's aware, it's not that I'm ignoring his comments. It's just Joe's very, very limited as to how he can interact and what he can say. And it's because of those active lawsuits that Mr. Throgmorton has with the county. That's just the realities of being an elected official. That's just the realities. I'm just kind of going through comments real quick. Liz asked, "Where is and she's going back to Shaw. Where is the employment contract?" And if there's no contract, yeah, it needs to change. So, does anybody have any questions before we wrap it up? I don't think so. I think they asked them as we were going, and Matt's a little behind, but he did want to point out that sometimes it's worth the sacrifice, especially referring to Julian Assange. I'm a huge WikiLeaks fan personally. I think he did a very, very great thing. So thank you very much, Joe, for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
I'd love to have you again, have you on again later another time. I'm sure there'll be no shortage of things to cover in a month or so.
Yeah. And for the most part, the good news is that the business of the county that needs to get done is still being handled. So I know people are like, oh, we need to put, the day-to-day stuff of the county is getting done. Even if it means me being, in some instances, the only one to take up the mantle and get it done. The stuff that needs to be getting done is done. The siren issues that we had that have persisted for like a year and a half, 2 years. I was able to get those taken care of and done in about a month, which I don't think is bad, getting it taken care of and done in about a month since it sat out there for at least 18 months.
I was going to say, how long was it not taken care of? I mean,
it's hard to say, at least 18 months for some of these. There's still one siren issue out in Westville that we're trying to get relocated because the building was sold by the town of Westville, and that's a long story. But there is a functional siren in Westville, but there's another one that's there that we need to get moved and put up. We're trying to get it moved and put over out at the ball fields there, out at 420, right by the prison out there.
Yeah.
But it needs to be put up on a 60-foot pole, and it needs to be put up on a 60-foot pole, and the council has to appropriate that money. But they're saying it's a money issue with the council and going back and forth with the city of Westville, since the city of Westville got money for the building, whatever.
Right.
That's the only one that's still outstanding, to my knowledge anyway, unless something's changed in the past 24, 36 hours I'm not aware of. But
and I think that's important that people understand that it's not with this whole bridge thing, even with the bridge thing and the back and forth and all of that, it's not that county business is not getting done, because it is. We see, I watched the meetings, people are having their issues addressed immediately. It's not like it couldn't be further from the truth to allude that nothing's getting done, because it is. When and where are the commissioner meetings?
So the commissioner meetings are twice a month, the first Wednesday of the month and the third Wednesday of the month. The first Wednesday of the month is at 10 a.m. and the third Wednesday of the month is at 6 p.m. And these are in the county annex on the first floor, the commissioner chambers meeting room on the first floor of the county annex. Is that room 3? Can't remember it, but it's right on the ground floor of the county of the county annex. Yeah. And you can also watch them online at ALCO, the ALCO TV. That's the Access LaPorte County. It's alc.viebit.com. You could also just search Access LaPorte County, in DuckDuckGo, for example, because Google kind of sucks.
Kinda.
yeah, more than kinda.
Right.
But use those alternative search engines like DuckDuckGo. They're
I use DuckDuckGo or Bing.
It's got a fun name, but they're a better search engine overall. So.
Oh yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I like DuckDuckGo. I found it gives a much more accurate representative of what you're actually searching for, rather than being guided, because there are algorithms that work. We've heard the term algorithms before so many times at this point, and it basically just means a program, a thing that makes a thing to a thing, and it guides what they want you to see on Google.
And sometimes it's purposeful. Sometimes it's just the machines are trying to, in some instances, it's just the machine learning trying to give you what it thinks you want,
right? Exactly.
Rather than showing you what you asked for. So
I don't want to attribute purely, evil intentions to this. It's just they employ AI, and many times AI is still not as advanced as it could be, and in some cases, it's just trying to do what it thinks you want without doing it the right way. So. It is what it is. So make sure, seriously, people, I'm gonna throw my little banner down there again because I think it's important. Get involved. Attend your local government meetings. Communicate with your elected officials. Let them know you're watching them. Talk to them about what matters to you. If there's something that is on the agenda that you really care about, make sure they know you care about it. Because in many cases, these people are human. Mr. Haney's human. The other commissioners are human. The people that are in your government are just people. They're just regular people. Never, ever be intimidated by these people. They're just people like you and me. And in many cases, they don't know what you want unless you tell them. And that's why, Joe, I'll give it to you. You are very, very communicative on your social media pages. And we greatly appreciate that because we always know how we can communicate with you and let you know, hey, not everybody has social media or at least checks it regularly. So don't be afraid to pick up the phone and call their office and be like, hey, I just want you to know that this is really important to me. You don't have to be a jerk. Don't call and, scream at them and all of that. But definitely pick up the phone and be like, hey, I just want you to know this thing coming up on the agenda. This is really important to me. And I want you to vote this way. That doesn't mean they will, but at least they know how you feel now.
Yeah. Yeah, and for the most part, even on things that I find that are like we'll keep this really short, but the rate increase we did for recycling fees. I saw I posted multiple times on Facebook. Several people commented to me, and I said, look, and I said the same thing over and over. I said, here's the phone numbers you can call. Here's email you can send. Don't just say it here on social media because you know how we've seen it during commissioner meetings. They refer to it as those people on social media. Well, that's like 99% of your constituents use social media. Okay, at this point, it's not 1982 anymore, right? When I was 5 years old in Florida attending high school,
right,
kindergarten, right? Yeah, like everybody's on social media right now. But even my
grandmother has Facebook.
There were a total of 2 people who actually contacted solid waste over the increase in the cost. I mean, there were hundreds of people who went ballistic on social media. 2 actually took time to contact. 2 out of 110,000 people in LaPorte County, 2 actually used via phone or email to contact either the commissioners or solid waste district. So,
wow,
that's how few people communicate. The good news, so there is good news for that if you have an issue that you feel strongly about. As elected officials, we are so accustomed to not hearing from the public. I hear from the public because I actually take the responses that I get on social media and treat them as if they were a phone call or if they were an email. I don't say, oh, well, because this message came through on Facebook, I don't care, or this message came through on Instagram or Twitter, it doesn't matter because it wasn't official. I consider it all the same contact. Somebody takes time to contact me and let me know something, I take it just as seriously as if they send it to my government email address. And if it's an issue like that, I would actually prefer it to go to my county email, or call. Call is fine too. But because I'd love to have a stack of comments to bring out, be like, I was emailed with, this many emails, and thumb through them. It doesn't mean that I'm going to enter them into the record or say your name or anything. It's just, I would love to be able to, because like when I called out the attorney, when I asked him if he was ghostwriting emails for elected officials, he said no. I held up the 2 emails and I said, well, what about these? And he was like, well, he wrote the last paragraph. Okay, well, thank you for admitting you wrote the entirety of the rest of it, but okay. So anyway, my point there is that because we hear from so few people on issues that come up on the agenda, your comment will, if your email or your phone call will mean that much more to those of us who get it. At least in my opinion, it is.
Yeah.
Because when I get a phone call from somebody from something that's on the agenda, regardless of if I've heard from them before or not, that piques my interest and in some cases gets me to look a little deeper at it if it was something that wasn't necessarily on my radar. Because there are some things that come across that look initially fairly benign, right?
Oh,
So,
yeah.
some of this, we deal with a lot of minutia and stuff that's just kind of just keeping government going. So some of it, you've got all this stuff on your plate, right? So, you're looking down at your plate, there's, 20 different things you're looking at today, in addition to all the other little things you had to put together to make sure you could get to those. And that you're looking down at 20 things, and sometimes it looks so mundane or just business as usual, so to speak, that you don't, that phone call or that email or that message to say, hey, look at this thing, this is how I feel about this. It makes you take a second look at it and drill down deeper into it. Not that you, and that's one of the things that I try and impress when we're up there on the dais during a meeting, and a fellow commissioner is trying to pretend like they know all about this or that. It's like, no, we don't. And I made the point about, the actual, go through the claims. It's like, yeah, are you though? Because did the water company deliver 2 bottles of water to the auditor's office this week, or did they deliver 3? Did you go and check?
Right.
Did you look at the actual bill that came through? No, I know you didn't, because they didn't get emailed out.
Right.
You weren't here all week, and your name got stamped to it. So you didn't even see the actual invoice. You see the line item claim, but you didn't see the invoice. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, right? So we got to put this into perspective, right? Every week there's a stack of invoices that are, depending on the week, from here to, like here, right? So am I expected to go and drive to, or go across the street and check at the building department that they got 2 or 3 bottles of water delivered this week? Right? I mean, that's stuff that you're trusting the vendor to be accurate. You're trusting the person who signed for it in the building department, for example, to know that they signed for 3 bottles of water, or 2 instead of, whatever it is, right? So it's not physically possible for any of us individually, or even the 3 of us as a whole. There aren't enough hours in the day to verify all these claims that come through. And I like to use the water bottle example because it's something very tangible and you can visualize that very easily rather than some of these things that are a little more obscure. So being able to, but you get down to that level and there are certain folks who don't even want to admit that. And it's like, all right, well, first of all, you're not admitting to anything that's wrong or that you didn't do your job or due diligence.
Yeah.
It's just that it's impossible for us to do that. And to pretend like you are, it's just, why? It's like, it's okay. We're all human. There's only 24 hours in a day. It's how it works, right? We have 800 employees, full and part-time. We have 800 employees in this county. The idea that we know every single one, every single thing that they do, every paper clip that they use, every time they, use, go through all the ink in their pen. No, we don't. We can't. It's impossible. But I just don't like the idea of pretending that just because somebody sits up there that they're this all-knowing, omnipotent.
Right, because of course,
controller.
Yeah, we're all going to make mistakes. We're all human, and that's why it's important, I believe as well, to make sure that you're not just watching, government entities or elected officials like a hawk waiting for them to make a mistake, but you're watching them to make sure that they're representing your interest, right? And if something you really, really care about, and I can't stress this enough, if something you really, really care about, even if you only care a little bit about, is up for the agenda or is being talked about or whatever, do not hesitate to send an email, to pick up a call or whatever, pick up the phone and call these people, let them know, hey, these are my interests and I expect my interests represented. You hear all the time, call your congressman, call your, senator. That's great. And I'm sure these people receive tons of phone calls. Your local officials are arguably far more important in your day to day than your congressman and your senator. So just kind of leave you with that don't be afraid to get involved. We desperately need more real American patriots involved in our election systems. And I think that really is the most important thing anyone could take away from the conversation is be involved, pay attention, and watch what's going on. If you don't live in LaPorte County, and you're watching this, pay attention to your county commissioner meetings, your county council meetings, the meetings for your town. Start paying attention and see how these people act, because a lot of times you don't know. You vote for people, not you in particular, but most people, they vote for people that they recognize on the ballot. Oh, I know that name. Oh, I know that name. Without knowing anything about these people, without knowing how they act, without knowing how they respond to things. And I think in the age of social media, in the age of the internet, the world at your fingertips, that is simply unforgivable. You can do just a few minutes of not just their ad, not just their page, but really how they actually act in these meetings is going to tell you far more than anything they put on their website or their social media.
Yeah. Absolutely. And all of our contact information, depending on whoever you want to get a hold of, it's all at the county website, laporteco.in.gov. You can click through, whether you want to click on commissioners or council or wherever you want. There'll be phone numbers and email addresses there. My email is jhaney@laporteco.in.gov, and you can find that there, and phone numbers there and stuff. I won't rattle them all off now, but you can find them all there and bring them all up and get a hold of us anytime. So
there you go, laporteco.in.gov. Write that down. I'll leave it across there. And again, thank you very much, Joe. We appreciate your time, and we're gonna wrap it up. We're at an hour and a half. I'm sure we could keep talking for hours. I know I could. I'm kind of long-winded, but I'll let you get back to your duties and your family. And again, thank you very much for being on. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Dion. Have a great night.
You too. All right, everybody. That was Mr. Joe Haney, and he is the only commissioner I know of, really, me personally, that is doing what he can for the people. You guys know my wife's running for commissioner to replace Sheila Mateus. Just seriously, and this has nothing to do with Joe. It's got nothing to do with even Sheila. Watch these meetings. Look at how these people act. Look at what they do, and never, ever, ever. I've when I was running especially when I ran for Congress, right? I went to various places and I talked to different people, and these people would say, "Hey, man, it's really good to meet you. Thank you for taking time out to to talk to me." And I wasn't even, I'm not elected. And this is what I've said consistently. I'm just like you, right? The people that don't think that they're just like you, the people that don't believe that they're just like you, that think they're above or different than you, those people should not serve you. They should not be elected. And many of these people, unfortunately, I'm not going to mention anyone specifically. You see it. Just look. Just look. You see that they do not represent your interests. So thank you for watching. I appreciate it. And God bless you. God bless Indiana. And God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
If you'd like to support the show, please visit our Patreon at patreon.com/Dion's Daily Dose. This has been Dion's Daily Dose, hosted by Dion Bergeron. Executive producers Sean Holgram and Michael Beebe. Copyright 2021. Dion's Daily Dose, all rights reserved.